And hello, everybody. You're very welcome to an on-location Chats on the Road to RSA Conference with Sean and Marco. Those of you watching will realize Marco's not here. He's like, you know what? This is technical SANS stuff. You go have fun. And I said, yes, I'm going to go have some fun with my friends from SANS who do a keynote at RSA Conference every year. And I think this is their third or fourth chat we've had where we get to talk about your panel and the things you get to talk about, even if we don't get to talk about them. Wait, what am I saying? And first and foremost, though, it's great to see you all. I'm really looking forward to catching you all in person in San Francisco as well. So it's good to have you all back on.
Well, thank you, Sean. We're glad to be here. Very excited about upcoming RSA conference, and it's always nice to do a little sneak preview with ITSPmagazine.
Love it. Love it. So we have Heather, Johannes, and Ed joining from SANS, and I'm going to give them each a moment to kind of share who they are and what they're up to, and then we'll get into the keynote panel. So Heather, I'll start with you.
Okay. I am Heather Mahalik Barnhart. I am DFIR curriculum lead at SANS and faculty fellow instructor, course author. So very, very busy in SANS. And I'm also a senior director of community engagement at Cellebrite. So all day, every day, chasing mobile threats, dealing with different intelligence and figuring out all the scary things that are on all the devices all the time. So if you think about it, and I say this every year, we're so tied to these things. And the more and more we rely upon them, the bigger the threats become. So that's where I am living every day.
Nice one. Nice one. It's good to have you on again. Johannes.
Yeah, my name is Johannes Ullrich. I'm the Dean of Research for the SANS Technology Institute College, and also a course author and SANS fellow. One of the courses I'm co-authoring is Web Application Security. So not to give too much away, but there may be something related to that in my panel contribution here. And yeah, I would say, everything is a web application in some way. So that's what I have here.
Yeah, and I've often looked at even some of the client apps are web apps.
Yeah,
they look like clients. It's really really
Heather's
cool.
mobile apps usually are connecting to some kind of API.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, they all look the same now these days. Ed.
Sure. So I'm Ed Skoudis. I'm the president of the SANS Technology Institute College. I will be the moderator of the panel, and I guess I'm the chief herder of the cats. We've been doing this panel, on the keynote stage for 9 years or so. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 8, something like that. And then we've actually been doing the panel at RSA Conference for maybe 17 or 18 years. But then we just they gave us bigger and bigger stages to do it on. In addition to working at the SANS College, I am also a SANS Fellow. I help, bring on board new instructors and coach them. In addition to that, I have a consulting firm I call CounterHack. We're 22 people that does primarily offensive stuff, penetration testing, and so forth. I also am on the board of directors for the local bank, and I'm on the board of a charity and another college, and things are good. Just really loving this kind of work.
Nice. And people may not recognize you without the hat. Without a headpiece.
I did receive a gift just last weekend of this hat.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Try that on.
Look at that.
How cool is that?
Yeah, you should wear that on stage.
I was thinking about it, but it's a brand new hat, a little fancy there, but it keeps the sun off. It keeps.
It's very Josh Wright.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Normally I do a fedora. He usually uses one of these driver's caps. So, but it was
that Irish, English, Scottish?
Yeah.
Heard something like that.
Custom made.
Nice one. Nice one. Well, fantastic. Well, it's good to have you all on, as I mentioned, and I think where I want to start, I'm sure most folks know, but the whole point of the RSA conference coverage is to open up the world of cybersecurity to those who may not already be familiar with it. So clearly my audience CISOs and security leaders and practitioners know who SANS are, but folks outside of that group attending RSA conference for the first time may not know. So who wants to give us kind of an overview of that? Ed, go for it.
Sure. So SANS Technology Institute the SANS Institute is celebrating its 35th anniversary this year. So it's kind of a big deal. 35 years in information security or cybersecurity. SANS is a training institute that trains tens of thousands of people per year. We also have many materials and resources that people rely on through the industry, like our great posters. We have various distributions for doing analysis of things, such as digital forensics or reverse engineering malware. You'll notice in Johannes's background, SANS also has the Internet Storm Center that Johannes runs, which is sort of like an early warning indicator for major events on the internet, as well as a diary for things that are happening in the lives of incident handlers. And SANS also has a college. A lot of people don't realize that. Johannes and I are very heavily involved with the college. Heather is as well. But the SANS College, we have over 2,000 students now, roughly half at the graduate level, roughly half at the undergraduate level. So we have master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, as well as certificates. But 2,000 students is really kind of an inflection point in the college life. It's growing fast, over 25% per year. And one of my favorite parts of my job is working with the SANS college students. So, I mean, SANS does a lot of things, but Training Institute, the college, the Internet Storm Center, and then all of those free resources, by the way, which people can access by going to sans.org/free. sans.org/free. There's all kinds of great stuff there that people can take advantage of.
Lots of free tools too.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm trying to remember back, I think it was late 90s. We had a bunch of SANS posters hanging around the
Those posters great. It's pretty much wallpaper. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You gotta have them. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So 19 years of this panel. You earned a spot on the keynote stage, which is really cool. And for those who haven't listened to the previous episodes, maybe give us an overview what the history of the panel is. Why was it started? Why was it formed, I should say, and what's the objective? And has that shifted over the years?
Johannes, you want to take that? You've been doing this forever with me.
Yeah, and I think it's still sort of true to its origin. It's supposed to provide focus on what really the top threats are. It's also supposed to be forward-looking. So it's not necessarily just telling you about, the same thing that everybody keeps telling you based on what happened last year, but really to project a little bit ahead of the curve. And I have to say, if you sort of look back of some of the topics that we have covered in the last few years, some of them have become current today or a couple of years after we had it. Like, I think it was 2 or 3 years, talked about some of the uses of AI in some of malware analysis and such. So that's hot topic right now again. And that's really what the panel is supposed to provide. It's that momentum, that energy for you to then go out and look for these new and upcoming things yourself and inform yourself about it.
Yeah. You know what Katie said last year that I really liked? We call it like what do we call it? The deadliest threats, the 5 deadliest threats, or
know about.
It's like the scariest threats.
Yeah.
But we also teach the best ways to mitigate those things. So even though it sounds like it's almost a doomsday, it always ends in a positive manner on ways to think differently and mitigate and protect yourself and protect your organizations. So we could always, it wouldn't be as eerie though, learn how to protect yourself from the 5 threats. But we do. That's something we always end with. That's a key thing. We're not going to throw a threat out there and tell everyone to run. We want people to face technology. So that's a huge part.
That's really well said. And it's all practical. It's like, okay, what can they do with this? And, the structure of the panel, I think, is kind of interesting. It makes it pretty intense for the presenters, just the way that it's laid out. Heather, did you want to kind of describe that? I think people find that interesting if they haven't heard it.
It's the strangest type of talk I've ever done in my life. It is the most pressure. And I would say the first minute is the most pressure. And then you're like, okay. all is calmed down. So we usually have, depending on how many people, 6 to 8 minutes to state our threat. So we need to tell you what the threat is, why you should be concerned, why we care about it, and how to mitigate it in that short period of time. And we're all competitive professionals. So we try to stay true to our time. It's like a who nailed it the most. But it's interesting because you're in front of all those people and you really have to deliver in a short period of time.
Yeah. So it's I moderate, then each of our 4 presenters presents for 6 minutes, and then it's all Q&A. And I remember the first time we were on the big stage, I mean, there's like 8,000 people in the room and another 20,000 on the stream. This is what I heard from some of the other SANS people who weren't on stage. They said, Ed, you walked out there right to the front of the stage and you looked terrified.
It was dangerous territory.
Yeah, but then you looked up and you smiled and everything just clicked. And from that point forward, it was just Ed presenting. And that's kind of what it is. When you walk out there, it's like, holy crap, look at this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, I got this. I can only see the first 2 rows anyway because the lights are so bright.
True.
Totally. It's like that for all of us the first time when we're up there. And this year we're going to have Terrence Williams, his first time up there, and he's going to be awesome. I can't wait. He's a SANS certified instructor, teaches great cloud stuff, and he's also an engineer for a small organization called Amazon. Perhaps you've heard of them. And he's going to be awesome. I'm very excited about his presentation this year. We're also going to be joined by Steve Sims. This will be his 2nd or 3rd year. I think maybe 3rd year. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, you were reading my mind because I was going to ask you to introduce the other 2 cool cats.
Yep. So Steve Sims,
cat herder.
I am the cat herder. So Steve Sims is the curriculum lead for the offensive curriculum at SANS. And then Terrence is a great instructor on cloud, specifically forensics in the cloud.
Nice. So you kind of kick things into gear, 6 to 8 minutes each. You kind of give the structure of the segment, Heather. How do you reach that point? I presume it's a few days involved preparing, thinking about this stuff.
Days, months. But it's hard too, don't you? I don't know if you guys feel this way, but every news thing that's coming out that is touching on my topic a little bit, I'm like, oh no, because you don't want it to become an everyday thing and everyone on the planet knows about it. And now you're talking about something old.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of pressure. Although we never learn our lessons. And what I talked about 6 years ago, I could do again. And so we didn't learn. So here we go again. Let's talk about it again.
That would be too depressing. But no, it starts like 6 months before the panel. And I think it ends as we walk up on the stage.
Yeah.
The last little polish, the last little sentence that you may want to add or remove from the presentation. It's by far the presentation I probably prepare and rehearse the most for among all the because it's so short. There's this famous saying, like, if I would have had more time to prepare, it would have been a shorter presentation. Yeah. And that's so true for this presentation because of the impact it also has.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun to do, though, I think. I mean, look, the 6 months preparation time, that's not super fun. But the whole process, especially when you get to the end, it's kind of fun. It's neat to have this opportunity to share with so many people what we're seeing at SANS. And I think another thing worth pointing out is while we have our 4 panelists, it is not merely their thoughts on what we should be talking about. I mean, that's a big part of it. I mean, Heather is dealing day in and day out with threats in the environment that she's seeing in her Cellebrite work, seeing as a curriculum lead and fellow at SANS. Johannes, running the Internet Storm Center, he sees a whole bunch of stuff. We get great input from Steve Sims and Terrence Williams and so forth. But also we're hearing from other SANS instructors, other curricula within SANS. We're hearing from SANS leadership. We're hearing from our students. I mean, all that stuff gets folded in, and we struggle and wrestle with topics for that full 6 months. I think here we are 2 weeks from the big event. And I think we've got our topics down, and we've got some initial drafts of all of the presentations. Still a little bit of iteration to be done on that. But from here on in, this is when the process gets fun. to bring it to a conclusion.
And to me, you nailed it, Heather. The conclusion is, now what? Right?
Yeah.
How do we mitigate this? So describe to me what you present, because I mean, the what you do could be extremely broad, right? It could be down to a control at the edge. It could be a configuration at the network layer. It could be put these protections in place. It could be you have to build your product differently. It could be run your program and your operations differently, staff your SOC differently. I'm just naming a bunch of things. Is it all of that, or what do you kind of provide?
It is. It's a little bit of all of the things, even things you can do as everyday people to be a little bit more secure. And something that I think that's really interesting that we never intend to do, and Johannes, I don't know if you realize this, but we always end up doing it, is somehow our threats kind of like intertwine with one another, even though they're completely different. There's something when we are listening to each other live on the stage, and I'll say, you know what Johannes just said actually applies. And then the mitigation and the steps to prevent also, the same things apply. It's like whatever Johannes says and his recommendations could definitely apply to something I say or Terrence or Steve will say as well. So it's interesting how just general tech smarts and thinking things through sometimes can be the solution.
Like most mitigations sort of have two different components. As of the technical thing, you have to change this line of code. But then there is also I call it the layer 8 part, the management part. How the human actually does that, and how do you convince them to do it? How do you present the threat and all some of the weaknesses without sort of calling someone's baby ugly and having them sort of automatically against whatever you're proposing to fix that problem. So I think that's sort of where the panel really lives off. That's sort of what Heather describes. Some of us sort of look sometimes more at the human side, some of us more at the technical side of the problem, but really both have to come together.
Yeah. I mean, I love this panel so much. Just listening to Heather and Johannes talk now, it's like, I want to hear what they have to say. I know that they are fighting the battles. They're seeing this stuff that's happening right now and kind of getting a glimpse of what happens next. So these are the people that I turn to, and I think a lot of us turn to say what's coming next. Where should my attention be? There's so many different things happening in this industry. Cloud, AI, the evolving attack surface and attack methodologies. It's like, what do I need to worry about next? And how can I be practical on that? And when Johannes and Heather and Steve and Terrence start talking, that's where the magic happens.
And I'm a nerd for risk, because you don't just jump to mitigating compensating controls, right? You have to understand, how does this risk impact me now? And you're looking into the future. So how does it impact me in the future? And how do we fold that into all the other stuff that I have to worry about? Do you touch on any of that in terms of how organizations or individuals as well should look at this from a risk perspective?
I think so. And I don't know if you guys want to chime in or not, but I think we try to make every risk we talk about and all the threats we talk about relatable in some way that people are like, oh yeah, that could happen in my organization, or even kind of demonstrate how it happens, like how easy it can happen. And I think when people see it on the screen and actually play out as we're talking about it, it sometimes clicks a little bit in their head.
I think you're right. Yeah. And also the different levels at which these risks manifest themselves. The neat thing about this panel is it deals with some risks that are society-wide, right? It also deals with some risks that are enterprise-centric. And then it deals with some risks that are personal. So, and you'll see as we go through the 5 different attack types, that there are some at each of those different levels, and some span multiple levels. We get a lot done in a 45-minute talk. Remember, it's 6 times 4, right? So 6-minute talks, and there's 4 of those, so that's 24 minutes. Plus there's like 2 minutes up front where we have to introduce everybody. So now we're at 26 minutes, and then 18 or so precious minutes of Q&A. So I do hope people will check it out. It's going to be at 4:15 Pacific time on Wednesday, May 8th. and it'll last for 45 minutes. And we try to give you a lot of stuff in the 45 minutes. Make sure you take notes. Yeah. I think people will like it.
Jam-packed. Who's in the room usually? Practitioner to executives?
Yeah.
Security, business?
Everyone. Yeah.
Yep. And they will stream it live. So if somebody's not there at, Moscone Center in San Francisco, it will be live streamed in real time. But really we try to write this for everybody. There is a technical bent to it, but as Heather mentioned, there's also sometimes a practical, personal bent to it as well, and an organizational. We're trying to cover a lot of bases, but to do it well, you can cover a lot of bases and not be very deep, but we're trying to cover a lot of things with a level of depth that will make everybody learn something.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we've reached the point of this conversation where you get to share your secret sauce. Who wants to go first?
It depends what you mean by secret sauce. If the secret sauce is what are the 5, we're not allowed to say what are the 5.
Oh, come on.
What are the 5?
Ed, I'll buy you a nice hat.
But maybe we could talk about how we choose the 5. And let me start. And then I invite Johannes and Heather to talk about maybe even more.
How do you do 5 with 4 people?
One person gets 2. One person gets 2. And this year, Johannes Ullrich will be doing 2 topics. So that's one thing right out of the gate. The real secret sauce of this panel, that's, we're 18 years in and 8 or 9 years on the big stage. It's the people behind the panel. It's these panelists. It's Heather, it's Johannes, it's Steve, it's Terrence. You start out with really great people who have their finger on the pulse of the industry and say, what are you thinking about? What is worrying you? What are you dealing with today? That's the start. And then we pull them together on conference call after conference call every 3 or 4 weeks for 6 months. And what happens there? Johannes, Heather, you want to add the next level down?
Yeah, and I think the people behind the panel and then the people behind the people on the panel, all of us are teaching all these classes, like Ed mentioned, 10,000 students. Now, none of us is teaching 10,000 students, but we teach a lot. And teaching is always that two-way street. While you're talking to your students, you learn about their problems. And you start seeing patterns. For me, also, with Storm Center, seeing all the data we are collecting and seeing the questions that come in about the data. What are people looking for? What are things? I mean, I think that really sort of starts getting things into focus. And then, of course, on conference calls, bouncing off ideas and seeing Ed or Heather cringe or smile to provide some feedback on whether or not that may be a topic that actually resonates.
I would say this is the first year that I was like, I know exactly what I need to speak on. Every other year, I'm like, oh no, I need 3 ideas. And I'm trying to scramble and think of things that the panel will approve.
Yeah.
But this year, I don't know. I shouldn't say I got lucky, but one was glaring that people are struggling with. And I try to focus on what are people truly calling me for help. I have this thing and I don't know what to do. How did this happen? What can we do now?
Yeah.
So that's where I try to channel. And it's tough though.
I think it was 4 months ago, Heather said, I want this topic. I think this is important. And, we said, really, why, how are you going to address it? This and that. It went up to SANS senior management and they're asking a bunch of questions about it. So it really is this refining process. And, Heather's going to make an amazing presentation about this topic. Whatever this topic is, we're not allowed to say.
What is it?
Nice try.
It's a great topic.
It's an intense topic, I'll tell you that. But I mean, some of these things, well, we can't say the specific topics because we're not allowed to. But I mean, you will see things associated with the latest cloud attacks, the stuff that the Internet Storm Center is writing up on a regular basis. I'll bet you see a little bit of AI sprinkled in here and there because but it's various other attacks to which attackers are, marrying AI to it to make themselves even more lethal. So you'll see things along those themes, but the specifics, well, you'll have to tune in. I mentioned it, May 8th, 4:15 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So
yes, local time in San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
All right. So you're not going to tell me what the topics are.
But you kind of see the forest and we'll show you 5 trees that day.
There you go. There you go. I'm going to put this as we wrap here. I'll put this question. One of you can answer. All of you can answer. Hopefully, at least one of you answer. Somebody enjoying the presentations and the Q&A that follows, how can they leverage what they hear from you to redefine cybersecurity?
Oh, that's a good one. Maybe, so we do, and this is a little bit of a giveaway, but if they've watched previous ones, Ed, it's not too bad of a giveaway. But at the end, Alan used to ask us, and Ed continued the tradition on what's a key thing that everyone should take away and something to learn and implement immediately. So I would say we immediately give those items right away. But even the people that approach you after, I know on LinkedIn and all social media and through email, people reach out all the time saying, thank you, I have now fixed this thing, or even ask you for follow-up keynotes or talks or recommendations. I know after my one last year, I ended up doing all kinds of tip sheets for parents and securing generations. And because I talked about phishing my son, but people were like, what about our parents? I was like, oh, I actually didn't think about my dad. It's actually a really good point. He's a really easy target. So I think follow-up questions and asking us for more is always a good idea. And I think any of us would definitely be open to it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Johannes, what do you have to add to that? That was great, Heather.
Yeah, no, I think it's the focus kind of. These are threats that you should worry about, that you should go out and learn about. There's always so much to learn in information security. And you have to zoom in on the threats that matter. And I hope that at least some of the threats that we'll talk about will be threats that matter to you, and you getting proactive and learning about these threats before they become a huge issue to you will hopefully help you.
Yeah. And I'd mentioned earlier, people taking some notes on this. In addition, we do a little write-up that we share with the press so that they can do their write-ups on the things, hoping to minimize misinterpretation of what we say, because it's natural. People hear things and they interpret it different ways. But we do a paragraph or two on each of the 5 topics that we share with the press, and then they can use that however they want and adapt it into their work. So even if you don't take good notes, you'll probably see some pretty good press write-ups. And by good, I mean they're accurate to what our intentions were. We don't tell them what to write, but we say, hey, here's the detailed topic and the areas of concern in it, and then they write their own materials from it, but we provide that to them. And then, as Heather said, the follow-up afterwards, we welcome that.
That's fantastic. Well, I love this group.
Well, thank you.
I love the other 2 cats, cool cats. This keynote is fantastic. I appreciate you all joining me every year to kind of give a preview, even if you won't spill the tea. I appreciate that. And just to kind of wrap what you all just described, and I appreciate you responding to that question. So it's about engagement, continued conversation, the community where possible, taking action, right? Leveraging what you hear and see and have conversations around and putting it to practice. And no surprise, with instructors and teachers, continued learning, right? I think that's the most thing. Don't sit stagnant. Take action and engage with others like this. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you in San Francisco and to catching the keynote. As Ed said, May 8th, 4:15 p.m. local time there. And hopefully everybody fills the room, fills the stream with goodness.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Right. And everybody watching, listening, thanks for joining us on our chats on the road to RSA Conference. And please stay tuned. I think as many conversations we've produced thus far, we have as many coming in the next 2 weeks. So lots of great conversations with keynotes, amazing people like this. And I appreciate you all for staying tuned. And we'll see you all in San Francisco.